Hi ladies. All right, so I'm going to ask you to take out your notebook and you are going to give a page a label of 2.1 continued. And you're going to call it slope formula. Formula. Okay. So I'm going to write down some things. You know this word slope, but now we're going to talk about its formula. So we're already aware that slope represents the change in the y values divided by the change in the x values. But there's also a methodology that is used to be able to calculate the slope between 2 points. And I'm going to write down a formula that might seem a little crazy at first. It says y little 2 minus y little 1 over x little 2 minus x little 1. And I want to encourage you to examine this formula and then start to ask questions about it. So you might be wondering what these little numbers represent. So imagine I had 2 points in the form of x comma y. How do I differentiate between these two possible differences in x, or these two possible differences in y? Well, if I call this first point my first point, then I can call this x little 1 and I can call this y little 1. And if I call this my second point, then I can call this x little 2 and y little 2. And if we think about the fact that slope is the change in my y values divided by the change in my x values, then the difference between those two values divided by the difference between the two x values should essentially give me my slope. Okay, so let's do an example where we use this slope formula. So example 1 is, imagine I had the points -2 comma 3 and 4 comma 5, and I said calculate the slope. So we can do this a number of ways. I could actually put these points on the graph. I can put these points on a graph, plot them, plot the 2 points, and then count the slope. But what I can also do is I can use the slope formula to find the change in my y values compared to the change in my x values. All right, so let's see what this looks like. So if I look at this value as my first x value, and this value is my first y, this value as my second x, and this value as my second y, then I can substitute them into this formula where I'm calculating the slope. So if I take 5 minus 3, divided by 4 minus -2, divided by 4 minus -2, and remember, we're subtracting a negative in this particular case, so I'm taking away the value -2. 5 minus 3 is equal to 2. 4 minus -2, that's essentially like adding those values together. 4 plus 2 is equal to 6, and when I go to simplify that, that gives me a third. So that's telling me that if I wanted to get from -2, 3 to 4 comma 5, what I would do is I would essentially rise by 2, run by 6, or I would go up by 2 to the right by 6, and I would get this value of 1 over 3. If I simplified it. So if I were to plot these points, left 2, up 1, 2, 3, put a point there, over 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can see how I'm going up by 2 and to the right by 6. If I went up by 3 to the right by 1, there would actually be a point in between these when I'm graphing my line. And that's really essentially the slope formula. I want to give you one more example that you can see and work with and touch, because it's interesting when you get a number like this. So I'm going to call this example 2. I want you to calculate the slope. So if I give you the point -3 comma 5 and the point -3 comma 7, and I go to actually find and calculate my slope, so this is x1, y1, x2, y2, and I take 7 minus 5, and I divide it by -3 minus -3. I get 2 over, add those together, 0. And if I think about this, how can I divide a number into nothing? Impossible. This is an undefined scenario. That means my slope is undefined. Take a look. If I were to plot these points, left 3, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, left 3, up 7, notice how the points are on top of one another and they create a vertical line with an undefined slope. How crazy is that? All right, girls, so that is the slope formula in a nutshell, and we will chat more when I see you guys again. Have a good one.